Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
The Minnesota Vikings are living through what can only be described as an absolute nightmare scenario mere days before their high-stakes Christmas Day showdown with the Detroit Lions. And folks, this story has more twists and turns than a telenovela on steroids. Head coach Kevin O'Connell just delivered the kind of news that makes Vikings fans want to throw their eggnog across the room. Franchise quarterback J.J. McCarthy has been ruled out of Thursday's game with a hairline fracture in his right hand, and the timing couldn't possibly be worse. This isn't just another injury report. This is the continuation of a deeply concerning pattern that has Vikings Nation asking the question nobody wants to voice out loud. Is their young superstar quarterback destined to spend more time in the medical tent than under center? Picture this scene, if you will. It's Sunday afternoon. McCarthy's playing against the Giants. Everything seems to be clicking. The offense is humming. And then disaster strikes. McCarthy heads to the sideline, clutching his throwing hand, and immediately you can see something is terribly wrong. He can't grip the football. He can't throw it. The medical staff rushes him to the locker room, and the recovery is similar to a bone bruise. He absolutely will not be available for what could be one of the most important games of the season. Here's where this story gets even more dramatic. If you were watching that game closely, you probably noticed that the play immediately after McCarthy got injured resulted in a fumble. Connect the dots, people. McCarthy knew something was catastrophically wrong with his hand. He literally could not hold on to the pigskin. He couldn't grip it, couldn't throw it, couldn't do the one thing an NFL quarterback absolutely must be able to do. That fumble wasn't just a mistake. It was a quarterback desperately trying to function with what was essentially a broken hand, and the result was predictable and heartbreaking. But let's zoom out for a moment and look at the bigger, more terrifying picture that's emerging here. This isn't just one unfortunate injury. This is becoming a pattern, a trend, a legitimate concern about whether J.J. McCarthy can stay healthy enough to fulfill his destiny as the Vikings franchise quarterback. Let's run through the absolutely brutal injury timeline that has defined McCarthy's rookie season, because when you see it all laid out, it's genuinely shocking. Week 1 of the preseason. McCarthy tears his meniscus and requires surgery, missing the entire start of his rookie campaign. The Vikings and their fans are devastated, but they tell themselves it's just bad luck, a freak injury, nothing to worry about long term. Then week 2 of the regular season arrives. McCarthy suffers a high ankle sprain that sidelines him for 6 weeks. 6 weeks for a rookie quarterback who desperately needs every snap, every rep, every opportunity to develop. Losing a month and a half of the season is absolutely catastrophic. But the injury train doesn't Seattle matchup. Now we're talking about brain trauma, the kind of injury that has ended careers and changed lives. McCarthy comes back claiming he's rewired his neurological brain waves through meditation and mental preparation, which sounds great in theory, but here's the reality. A couple weeks later, he's got a hairline fracture in his throwing hand, 4 significant injuries in one season, 4 separate instances where the franchise quarterback has been unable to play. 4 times Vikings fans have had to hold their breath and wonder if their future just got derailed. The question that's dominating every conversation in Minneapolis right now is this: is J.J. McCarthy injury prone, or has he just had spectacular simple yes or no? Some of these injuries are absolutely the result of an offensive line that hasn't provided adequate protection. When you're getting hit constantly, when defenders are in your face before you can complete your progressions, injuries are going to happen. That's just the brutal mathematics of professional football. But here's the uncomfortable truth that Vikings fans need to hear. Some of these injuries are on McCarthy himself. Let's talk about decision-making and self-preservation. Watch the tape on some of these injuries, and you'll see a young quarterback who hasn't yet learned the most important skill in football, knowing when to live to fight another down. There are plays where McCarthy could have slid feet first, but instead went head first into defenders. There are moments where he could have thrown the ball away, but tried to extend the play. There are instances where protecting himself should have been priority number 1, but instead he played with the reckless abandon of someone who thinks they're invincible. Compare this to Tom Brady, who built a 2-decade career partly by being obsessed with not getting hit. Brady used to say that if Ray Lewis all away and punt, then risk getting his receiver demolished or taking a hit himself. And that might sound cowardly to fans who want their quarterback to be a warrior, but you know what? Tom Brady played until he was 45 years old. He won 7 Super Bowls. He's the greatest quarterback of all time, and a huge part of that success was his almost neurotic focus on staying healthy. Then you look at other young quarterbacks who learned this lesson too late or not at all. Tua Tagovailoa and the terrifying fencing response after his concussions, the legitimate concerns about his long-term health and cognitive function, Jackson Dart taking unnecessary hits, Joe Burrow, who at just 27 years old is at a crossroads in his career, his body battered from years of taking punishment, reportedly wondering if he even wants to continue playing. These are cautionary tales, and J.J. McCarthy needs to study them like they're required reading for a final exam that determines his entire future. Kevin O'Connell, to his credit, has been diplomatic about all of this. He's praised McCarthy's growth over the last few games, saying he's been really happy and proud of how his young quarterback has played through the final stretch of the season, that JJ has taken some big steps, and it's been a blast being with him every single day. And O'Connell isn't wrong about the progress. Before this injury, McCarthy was finally starting to show the flashes of brilliance that made Minnesota trade up to draft him. He was putting together complete games, not just one good quarter or one impressive drive, but 4 quarters of solid quarterback play. The wins against the Commanders, Cowboys, and Giants weren't against playoff contenders, sure, but they represented something important: consistency. McCarthy was doing what franchise quarterbacks do. He was beating the teams he was supposed to beat. He was managing games, making smart decisions, protecting the football, and showing why the Vikings believed in him enough to make him their future. The ball was really starting to roll, momentum was building, confidence was growing, and then boom, another injury. The frustration for Vikings fans is almost unbearable because they can see what McCarthy could be. They can glimpse the potential, but they can't seem to get enough consecutive healthy games to fully realize it. And now here comes the absolute worst timing imaginable. Christmas Day, nationally televised game, the Vikings wearing their absolutely gorgeous winter whiteout jerseys that are legitimately some of the best alternate uniforms in the entire NFL against their division rival Detroit Lions in a game with massive playoff implications, and J.J. McCarthy will be watching from the sideline. This was supposed to be a moment. This was supposed to be McCarthy's opportunity to build on his earlier success against Detroit, to have another big performance on the biggest stage, to show the football world that Minnesota's quarterback situation is locked down for the next decade. Instead, the Vikings are turning to Max Brosmer, and if that name just made you wince, you're not alone. Brosmer's first career start against Seattle was, and let's be diplomatic here, absolutely terrible. It was the kind of performance that makes backup quarterbacks stay backup quarterbacks. The offense looked lost, drives stalled, nothing worked, and Vikings fans spent the entire game praying for McCarthy to get healthy. But here's where the story gets slightly less depressing. When Brosmer had to relieve McCarthy in the Giants game after the injury, he actually looked competent. Brosmer went 7 for 9, passing with a 77.8 completion percentage for 52 yards, and most importantly, he led his first career game-winning drive that ended in a field goal. That drive featured a brilliant 21-yard pass to Justin Jefferson along the sideline to convert 3rd and 17, and it was exactly the kind of vintage Justin Jefferson moment that Vikings fans have been desperately craving all season. Jefferson made the spectacular catch. Brosmer threw an accurate ball under pressure in a crucial moment, and suddenly the narrative around the backup quarterback shifted from "oh no" to "maybe we have a chance." Now, let's be crystal clear. Max Brosmer is not the long-term answer. He's not the franchise quarterback. He's not the reason Vikings fans wake up excited about Sunday mornings. But for one game, for one Christmas Day afternoon in Detroit, he might be exactly what Minnesota needs. A game manager who won't lose the game, who can get the ball to his playmakers, who can execute the game plan without trying to be a hero. And speaking of playmakers, this is where Justin Jefferson becomes absolutely critical to everything. Jefferson has historically torched the Detroit Lions. It's practically a Christmas tradition at this point. In the last game against Detroit, he didn't rack up his usual yardage numbers, but he scored a touchdown. And that's the kind of production Minnesota desperately needs. Jefferson is going to draw massive attention from the Lions' secondary double teams and safety help over the top. But if Brosmer can recognize that and take advantage of the single coverage elsewhere, if he can just be competent and accurate, the Vikings have a genuine shot. The Lions' defense is hobbled by injuries right now, which is excellent timing for a backup quarterback making just his second start. And here's another factor that could swing this game. If Amon-Ra St. Brown doesn't play for Detroit, that's a massive advantage for Minnesota's defense. The Vikings' defense has been desperately needing the offense to complement them every single week this season, carrying the team on their backs, making stops in crucial moments, and generally playing way above expectations. If they catch a break with Detroit's offensive weapons being limited, if they can contain Jahmyr Gibbs and the Lions' running game, suddenly this game becomes very winnable. Although there's a weird trend that Vikings fans should be aware of. When the Lions wear those black alternate jerseys, Gibbs tends to go absolutely crazy. It's one of those strange statistical quirks that doesn't make logical sense, but happens often enough that you can't ignore it. The Vikings contained him well in their earlier matchup this season, but on a primetime Christmas Day game with Detroit wearing those sleek black uniforms, all the factors are in place for Gibbs to have a monster performance. Minnesota's defense needs to make stopping him priority number one, because if Gibbs breaks loose, the Vikings' chances of pulling off a Christmas miracle diminish significantly. But let's circle back to the elephant in the room, the question that's going to dominate Vikings discourse all offseason. What do we do about J.J. McCarthy's injury problems? This isn't something that can be ignored or minimized or explained away as bad luck. 4 significant injuries in one season is a red flag the size of Texas. The conversation around McCarthy being injury-prone started before he ever played a regular season snap, with analysts and media members questioning whether the meniscus injury was a warning sign. Then the high ankle sprain added fuel to that fire. Then the concussion added even more concern. Now the hand fracture has taken what was a concerning trend and turned it into a legitimate crisis. So, what's the solution? How does McCarthy go from being a quarterback who can't stay on the field to being the durable franchise cornerstone Minnesota needs him to be? The answer is multifaceted and requires work in several different areas. First, there's the physical preparation. McCarthy needs to examine his training regimen, his conditioning program, his strength and flexibility work, everything about how he prepares his body for the rigors of professional football. Maybe he needs a second quarterback coach specifically focused on mechanics that keep him safer in the pocket. Maybe he needs additional conditioning trainers who can help him build the kind of body that can withstand punishment better. Second, there's the in-game decision-making. And this is where McCarthy needs to fundamentally change his approach. He needs to learn when to slide feet first instead of diving headfirst into defenders. He needs to understand that throwing the ball away and living to see third down is better than holding the ball too long and taking a devastating hit. He needs to recognize that his availability is his best ability, that he's no good to his team watching from the sideline, no matter how heroic his intentions were on any individual play. Look at what happened to quarterbacks who didn't learn this lesson. Tua's fencing pose after concussions became a terrifying symbol of what can go wrong. The legitimate questions about his cognitive future, the genuine concern from fans and analysts about whether he should continue playing at all. The NFL has implemented numerous rules to protect quarterbacks, roughing the passer penalties, helmet-to-helmet contact prohibitions, protections for defenseless players, but ultimately quarterbacks have to protect themselves too. The league can only do so much. At some point, the player has to make smart decisions. Third, there's the mental and strategic preparation. McCarthy talked about rewiring his neurological brainwaves through meditation after his concussion, which sounds great, but meditation alone isn't going to prevent injuries. He needs to study film obsessively, learn to recognize defensive pressure patterns before they develop, understand how to manipulate pocket space to avoid hits. The greatest quarterbacks don't just react to danger, they anticipate it and position themselves to avoid it entirely. The timing of all these injury issues is particularly frustrating because before the hand fracture, McCarthy was genuinely developing into the quarterback Minnesota believed he could be. The progress was visible, tangible, exciting. He was making better decisions, showing improved accuracy, demonstrating command of the offense, and building chemistry with his receivers. Vikings fans were finally starting to feel optimistic about the future, finally starting to believe that the quarterback position was solved for the next decade, and then another injury reminder that nothing is guaranteed in this league. The cruel irony is that if McCarthy had stayed healthy for this Christmas game against Detroit, it could have been a defining moment in his young career. The stage is perfect. Christmas Day, national audience, division rival, playoff implications, gorgeous uniforms, the whole package. A strong performance would have been the capstone to his late season improvement, the statement game that announces a franchise quarterback's arrival. Instead, he'll be in street clothes, watching Max Brosmer try to deliver a Christmas miracle, probably frustrated beyond words that his body betrayed him again. And let's address the wild speculation that's been floating around Vikings media circles. What if Minnesota decides McCarthy is too injury-prone and trades for Joe Burrow? On the surface, it sounds appealing. Swap one injury-prone quarterback for a proven veteran. But here's the reality check. You'd be trading one injury-prone quarterback for another injury-prone quarterback. Burrow has dealt with devastating injuries throughout his career, and at 27, he's reportedly at a crossroads, questioning his future in the game. That's not the kind of quarterback you trade away your young prospect for, no matter how talented Burrow is when healthy. The better path forward is investing in McCarthy's development and health. Fix the offensive line so he's not getting destroyed on every play. Teach him better decision-making so he's protecting himself. Improve his conditioning and training so his body can better withstand the punishment. It's a long-term project, absolutely, but it's a more sustainable solution than constantly chasing the next veteran quarterback and hoping they stay healthy. This season has felt like 3 seasons compressed into one for Vikings fans. The emotional roller coaster has been exhausting. The highs have been genuinely exciting. The lows have been embarrassingly bad. And the constant injury updates have created a persistent anxiety that never fully goes away. Last season felt easy and breezy by comparison, a fun ride where Vikings fans could actually enjoy watching their team. This year has been stressful, dramatic, unpredictable, and at times genuinely hard to watch. But that's the battle of being a Minnesota Vikings fan, taking the good with the bad, hoping for the best, while preparing for disappointment. As this Christmas Day game approaches, Vikings fans find themselves in an impossible position. They need Max Brosmer, a backup quarterback who looked terrible in his first start, to somehow channel his inner Christmas magic and lead Minnesota to a crucial victory over a talented Detroit team. They need Justin Jefferson to be Superman, the defense to be perfect, and everything to break right. It's asking a lot. It's probably asking too much, but it's also exactly the kind of improbable scenario that makes football beautiful when it actually works out. The bigger question looming over everything is what happens with J.J. McCarthy moving forward. Can he stay healthy for an entire season? Will these injuries pile up and shorten his career before it really begins? Or will this be the wake-up call that fundamentally changes how he approaches the game, leading to a long, successful career as Minnesota's franchise quarterback? The answer will define the next decade of Vikings football, and right now, nobody knows which direction this story is heading. What we do know is this: the Vikings cannot afford another season like this one. They cannot afford to have their franchise quarterback missing significant time with injury after injury. They cannot afford to constantly be playing backup quarterbacks and hoping for miracles. Something has to change, whether that's McCarthy's approach, the offensive line's protection, the training staff's methods, or some combination of all three. The talent is there. The potential is obvious. But potential means nothing if you can't stay on the field. So as Vikings fans gather with their families on Christmas Day, they'll be watching with bated breath, hoping that Max Brosmer can deliver the kind of improbable performance that becomes instant legend. They'll be watching Justin Jefferson, praying he can work his usual magic against Detroit. They'll be watching the defense, needing them to be heroes one more time. And they'll be thinking about J.J. McCarthy, wondering if their young quarterback can overcome this injury trend and become the player they so desperately need him to be. The Vikings simply cannot catch a break, and that's not hyperbole. It's the defining characteristic of their entire season. But football has a funny way of surprising you, of delivering joy when you least expect it, of creating moments that make all the frustration worthwhile. Maybe Christmas Day will be one of those moments. Maybe Max Brosmer will be the unlikely hero. Maybe the Vikings will find a way to win despite everything working against them. Or maybe this will be another chapter in a season defined by disappointment and what-ifs. Either way, Vikings fans will be watching because that's what fans do. They show up, they hope, they believe, even when logic suggests they shouldn't. And somewhere in Minneapolis, J.J. McCarthy will be watching too, probably more frustrated than anyone, desperately wishing he was on that field making plays instead of sitting on the sideline nursing yet another injury. The question is whether this becomes the moment that changes everything for him, the wake-up call that transforms his approach and launches a brilliant career, or whether it's just another data point in a concerning pattern that never gets resolved. This Christmas, Vikings fans aren't asking Santa for much, just a win against Detroit, a healthy J.J. McCarthy for next season, and maybe, just maybe, a little less drama. Is that too much to ask? Based on this season, it might be, but hope springs eternal even when your franchise quarterback is made of glass. So what do you think about this absolutely wild situation? Is J.J. McCarthy destined to be injury-prone throughout his career, or is this just a brutal rookie season that he'll learn from and overcome? Can Max Brosmer actually pull off a Christmas miracle, or are we setting ourselves up for disappointment? Should the Vikings be genuinely concerned about their franchise quarterback's durability, or is this just bad luck that will eventually balance out? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Smash that like button if you want the Vikings to somehow pull this off. And subscribe if you want to follow this drama as it continues into what promises to be a fascinating offseason. Happy holidays, Vikings fans. May your Christmas be merry, your team victorious, and your franchise quarterback finally, mercifully healthy for more than 3 consecutive weeks.